Marcus Chen adjusted his tactical vest one last time before stepping into the abandoned research facility. The mission briefing had been simple enough: retrieve classified data from the old Terran Vampire Coalition research station before the enemy could get their hands on it. What they hadn't mentioned was that the station would be crawling with hostile forces from 3 different species. The facility stretched deep underground, its corridors lit by emergency lighting that cast eerie shadows on the metallic walls. Marcus moved with practiced silence, his enhanced combat suit muffling his footsteps. As a member of the Terran Special Forces, he had trained for scenarios like this, but something felt different about this place. The air carried a strange metallic taste, and his suit's sensors detected unusual energy readings. According to his tactical display, the data core was located 7 levels down, in what used to be the primary research laboratory. He had already encountered 3 enemy patrols and neutralized them without raising alarms, but his ammunition was running low. Marcus reached the 7th level and found himself in a corridor lined with reinforced doors. Each door bore warning symbols in multiple languages: Terran Standard, Vampire Gothic Script, and several others he didn't recognize. The facility had been part of a joint research project between humans and vampires, back when the Coalition still existed. The war had changed everything. What started as a trade dispute between humans and the Kythera Empire had escalated into a 3-way conflict when vampire houses chose sides. Most vampire nobility supported the Kythera, viewing humans as inferior creatures suitable only for servitude. Only a few vampire houses remained neutral or actively supported humanity. His target door was marked Xenobiology Research Level 5 clearance required. Marcus attached a breaching charge to the lock mechanism and stepped back. The explosion echoed through the corridor, and he quickly entered the darkened laboratory. Emergency lighting flickered to life as his presence triggered motion sensors. The lab was enormous, filled with sophisticated equipment and specimen containers. At the far end, he spotted his objective, a cylindrical data core mounted on a pedestal, its surface covered in access ports and status lights. As Marcus approached the data core, he heard something that made him freeze. It was weak, barely audible, but unmistakably the sound of labored breathing. He drew his sidearm and activated his suit's enhanced vision, scanning the laboratory for any signs of life. Behind a bank of computers, he found her. The vampire princess lay on the floor in a pool of her own blood. Her elaborate dress, once magnificent purple silk embroidered with silver threads, was torn and stained. Long silver hair spread around her like a halo, and her pale skin was even whiter than usual. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old by human standards, though Marcus knew vampires aged differently. Her breathing was shallow and irregular. Multiple wounds covered her body, including a particularly severe injury to her chest that was bleeding profusely. Most humans would have died from blood loss already, but vampire physiology was remarkably resilient. Still, she was clearly dying. Marcus should have ignored her and completed his mission. Every second he delayed increased the risk of discovery. But something about the scene troubled him. The wounds looked recent, and there were signs of a struggle throughout the laboratory. Someone had tortured her. He knelt beside the injured vampire and checked her pulse. It was weak but steady. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of deep violet that seemed to glow in the dim light. She focused on him with obvious difficulty. "Human," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Why are you here?" Marcus hesitated. In the war, humans and vampires were enemies. But this young woman was no threat to anyone in her current condition. "I'm retrieving data from this facility." "What happened to you?" The vampire princess tried to speak but coughed instead, specks of blood staining her lips. "Kythera, interrogators," she managed. "They wanted information about the research. I refused." Marcus understood. The Kythera were notorious for their brutal interrogation methods. If this vampire had information they wanted and refused to give it up, they would have used extreme measures. The fact that she was still alive suggested they hadn't broken her. "My name is Princess Lyralii of House Moonwhisper," she continued with great effort. "We remained neutral in this war." The Kythera consider that treason. House Moonwhisper. Marcus had heard the name in intelligence briefings. They were one of the few vampire houses that hadn't declared for either side in the conflict. Their territory bordered both human and Kythera space, making them valuable allies or dangerous enemies depending on which way they chose. The research data, Lyralii whispered. It's not what your people think. It's not weapons research. It's medical. A cure for the blood plague that's been affecting vampire children. If the Kythera get it. She closed her eyes, exhausted by the effort of speaking. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the laboratory's temperature. The blood plague was a mysterious disease that had been killing vampire children for the past 5 years. If the Kythera gained control of the cure, they could use it as leverage against every vampire house in the galaxy. The princess was dying. Her breathing became more labored with each passing moment, and her skin grew paler. Marcus checked his tactical display. He had maybe 10 minutes before the next enemy patrol would reach the section of the facility. He looked at the data core, then, back at the dying vampire princess. The smart play was to grab the data and leave. But Marcus had joined the Terran military to protect innocent people, not to stand by while they died. Is there anything I can do? He asked. Lyralii opened her eyes and stared at him with surprise. You would help me? We are supposed to be enemies. You're not my enemy, Marcus replied. The Kythera are. And, from what you've told me, they're your enemies too. The vampire princess managed a weak smile. There is one way. But you cannot ask such a thing of a human. Tell me. Lyralii hesitated, then spoke so quietly he had to lean closer to hear. Vampires can heal from almost any wound if we have enough blood. Fresh blood. Human blood is most effective. But the amount I would need. She didn't finish the sentence, but Marcus understood. She needed a massive blood transfusion, more than any human could survive giving. It would mean his death. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, weighing his options. He could complete his mission and live, leaving her to die. Or he could save her life at the cost of his own. It shouldn't have been a difficult choice. He barely knew her. She was a vampire, a member of a species that many humans viewed as monsters. But, looking into her violet eyes, Marcus saw something that reminded him why he had become a soldier in the first place. She had refused to give the Kythera information that could harm innocent children, even under torture. That took courage, the kind of courage that transcended species boundaries. How would it work? He asked. Lyralii's eyes widened. Human, you cannot be serious. I am asking you to die for someone you just met. Maybe, Marcus said. But, those children you mentioned, how many lives would be saved if you survived to get that cure to them? The vampire princess stared at him in amazement. The research suggests it could save thousands. Maybe tens of thousands over the coming years. But, human, I cannot ask this of you. The guilt would destroy me. Marcus checked his tactical display again. 7 minutes until the next patrol. He made his decision. You're not asking, he said, drawing his combat knife. I'm offering. Before Lyralii could protest, Marcus made a deep cut across his left forearm. Blood immediately began flowing from the wound, more than would be safe for extended bleeding. He positioned his arm over her mouth. Drink, he commanded. Lyralii hesitated for a moment, then, her survival instincts took over. Her fangs extended, and she bit gently into his forearm, careful not to cause additional damage. Marcus felt an odd sensation as she began to feed, not pain, exactly, but a strange tingling that spread up his arm. Almost immediately, he could see the change in her. Color returned to her pale skin, and her wounds began to close. The bleeding from her chest slowed, then stopped entirely. Her breathing became stronger and more regular. But Marcus began to feel weak. His vision blurred slightly, and his hands started to shake. He was losing too much blood too quickly. His suit's medical systems activated, injecting stimulants to keep him conscious, but it was a temporary measure at best. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Lyralii pulled away from his arm. She looked completely transformed, her skin glowed with health, her eyes were bright and alert, and her wounds had healed to faint silver scars. Enough, she said firmly. Any more and you will die. Marcus tried to stand but stumbled. Lyralii caught him before he could fall, her vampire strength easily supporting his weight. His vision was becoming increasingly blurry, and he could feel his heart racing as it tried to compensate for the blood loss. The data core, he mumbled, pointing toward his objective. I will get it, Lyraeli said. She moved with fluid grace to the pedestal and began working on the extraction process. Her fingers flew over the control panel with practiced skill, suggesting she was familiar with the laboratory's systems. Marcus watched her work, fighting to stay conscious. His sacrifice had been worth it. She was alive, healthy, and apparently knew how to operate the research equipment. The cure for the blood plague would reach the vampire children who needed it. Lyraeli finished extracting the data and returned to his side, holding a crystalline storage device. The research is complete, she said. This contains not just the cure, but improved treatments for a dozen other conditions that affect both vampires and humans. She knelt beside him and gently took his wounded arm in her hands. To his surprise, she licked the cuts he had made, and they immediately stopped bleeding. The wounds sealed themselves, leaving only faint marks on his skin. Vampire saliva has healing properties, she explained. It will not restore your blood volume, but it will prevent further loss. Marcus nodded weakly. His suit's medical systems were working overtime, but he was still in serious danger. Blood loss of this magnitude typically required immediate medical intervention that wasn't available in an abandoned research facility. You need to go, he told her. Take the data and get out of here. The Kythera patrol will arrive soon. Lyraeli shook her head. I am not leaving you here to die after what you have done for me. You have to, Marcus insisted. The cure is more important than one soldier. The vampire princess studied his face for a moment, then smiled. You truly believe that, don't you? That your life is worth less than the mission? Marcus didn't answer, but his expression told her everything she needed to know. Human, Lyraeli said gently, you have given me more than blood. You have given me something I thought lost forever: faith in the possibility of cooperation between our species. I will not abandon that gift. Before Marcus could protest, she lifted him easily in her arms. Her vampire strength made his weight insignificant, and she moved toward the laboratory's rear exit with inhuman speed. Where are we going? He asked weakly. Somewhere safe, Lyraeli replied. My personal ship is hidden in the asteroid field near this facility. It has medical equipment that can help you recover. Marcus wanted to argue, but consciousness was slipping away from him. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the vampire princess's face, her violet eyes filled with determination and something else he couldn't quite identify. When Marcus woke up, he was lying on a medical bed in what appeared to be a ship's infirmary. Advanced monitoring equipment surrounded him, and he could feel the steady hum of engines indicating they were traveling through space. His left arm was bandaged, but he felt remarkably good considering how much blood he had lost. Lyraeli sat in a chair beside his bed, watching him with concern. She had changed out of her damaged dress into practical ship clothes, dark pants and a silver tunic that complemented her hair. Even in simple clothing, she maintained an air of nobility. How long was I unconscious? Marcus asked. 18 hours, she replied. My ship's medical systems were able to synthesize blood plasma compatible with human physiology. You should make a full recovery within a few days. Marcus tried to sit up and was surprised to find himself much stronger than expected. Where are we? En route to the neutral zone station where your people and mine sometimes meet for negotiations. I thought it would be the safest place to return you to human space. Marcus nodded, then remembered something important. The data core, do you still have it? Lyraeli held up the crystalline device. Safe and secure. Though I have been thinking about what to do with it. You should take it to your people, Marcus said. The vampire children need that cure. Yes, they do, Lyraeli agreed. But the research could benefit human children as well. Several of the treatments would be effective for human genetic disorders. Marcus considered this. Cooperation between humans and vampires had been rare since the war began, but medical research was an area where both species could benefit from collaboration. What are you suggesting? He asked. Lyraeli leaned forward, her violet eyes intense with passion. A joint medical initiative. Shared research and shared benefits. My house has remained neutral in this war because we believe cooperation is possible. This could be the beginning of something important. The idea was appealing, but Marcus knew the political realities. Most humans don't trust vampires. And most vampires consider humans inferior. Most, yes, Lyralii agreed. But, not all. You proved that when you gave your blood to save a stranger. I proved it when I refused to give the Kythera information that could harm innocents. She stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Human, what you did for me was more than a gift of blood. It was a gift of hope. Hope that our species can move beyond this war and find a better path forward. Marcus watched her silhouette against the starfield. The vampire princess was right, his decision to help her had been about more than just saving one life. It had been about choosing to see her as a person rather than an enemy, despite everything the war had taught both their species. My name is Marcus, he said. Marcus Chen. If we're going to work together, you should probably know that. Lyralii turned back to him, smiling. Marcus Chen. Thank you, Marcus Chen, for giving me not just life, but purpose. She returned to her chair beside his bed. I have a proposal for you. When we reach the neutral zone, I want you to come with me to meet with representatives from both our governments. We need to present this research properly, and I need someone the humans will trust. Marcus considered the offer. Officially, he was supposed to return to his unit after completing his mission. But, the mission had evolved into something much larger than simple data retrieval. The cure for the blood plague could save thousands of lives, and the possibility of human-vampire cooperation could potentially end the war itself. What makes you think they'll listen to us? He asked. Because, Lyralii said, we have something neither side has been able to achieve on their own. We have proof that cooperation is possible. Your blood runs in my veins now, Marcus Chen. We are connected in a way that transcends politics and prejudice. Marcus felt a strange warmth at her words. There was something profound about their connection, something that went beyond the simple medical procedure that had saved her life. He had given her his blood freely, without expectation of reward, and she had chosen to save him in return. All right, he said finally. I'll help you present this to both governments. But, I have one condition. Lyralii raised an eyebrow. What condition? If this cooperation initiative fails, if our governments reject the idea of working together, then we continue the medical research on our own. Those children shouldn't suffer because of political stupidity. The vampire princess smiled, and, for the first time since he had met her, it was a smile of pure joy. Marcus Chen, I believe this is the beginning of a very important partnership. As their ship traveled toward the neutral zone, Marcus found himself thinking about the implications of what they were attempting. The blood he had given to save Lyralii's life had created a bond between them, but, more than that, it had proven that the barriers between their species were not insurmountable. The war would continue, probably for years to come. But, perhaps, in some small way, they had planted a seed that would eventually grow into something better. A future where humans and vampires could work together instead of fighting each other. Marcus looked at the vampire princess sitting beside his bed, her violet eyes bright with determination and hope. Whatever came next, they would face it together. His blood had given her life, but her courage and vision were giving him something equally valuable, a sense of purpose that went beyond duty and orders. The cure for the blood plague was just the beginning. The real question was whether two people from warring species could convince their governments to choose cooperation over conflict. It wouldn't be easy, but Marcus was beginning to believe it might be possible. After all, if a human warrior could give his blood to save a dying vampire princess, and if that princess could choose to save the human in return, then perhaps anything was possible. The ship continued its journey through the stars, carrying with it not just two unlikely allies, but the hope for a better future for both their species. The neutral zone station appeared on their view screen like a massive metal flower blooming in space. Its 5 arms extended from a central hub, each section representing one of the major galactic powers that had agreed to its construction. The human section gleamed with clean white armor plating, while the vampire wing displayed elegant dark spires and silver accents. The other 3 sections belonged to species that had remained neutral in the current conflict. Marcus stood beside Lyralii on the ship's bridge, watching as they approached the docking bay. 3 days had passed since they left the research facility, and his recovery had been remarkable. The vampire medical technology had not only restored his blood volume but had somehow enhanced his healing abilities. He felt stronger than before, though he wasn't sure if that was due to the treatment or to the strange bond he now shared with Lyralii. Are you ready for this? Lyralii asked, her voice betraying a hint of nervousness. Marcus adjusted his dress uniform, which Lyraliai's ship had somehow managed to fabricate in perfect detail. As ready as someone can be for trying to convince two hostile governments to work together. The docking process proceeded smoothly, though Marcus noticed the unusual number of security personnel present. Representatives from both human and vampire governments were already aboard the station, along with diplomats from several neutral species. Word of their arrival had apparently spread quickly through diplomatic channels. As they walked through the station's corridors, Marcus was struck by the careful attention to detail in the neutral sections. Every sign was written in multiple languages, every decorative element was chosen to avoid favoring any particular species. It was a testament to the possibility of cooperation, though the armed guards at every checkpoint reminded him how fragile that cooperation really was. Their first meeting was with Admiral Sarah Morrison, the senior human representative on the station. Marcus had heard of her by reputation, a veteran of multiple conflicts who had risen through the ranks based on merit rather than politics. She waited for them in a conference room in the human section of the station, accompanied by two diplomatic aides and a medical officer. Sergeant Chen, Admiral Morrison said as they entered. Your commanding officer is quite concerned about your unauthorized departure from the mission zone. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied. I understand I'll need to explain my actions. The Admiral gestured toward chairs around the conference table. Please, sit. And, you must be Princess Lyraliai of House Moonwhisper. Your reputation precedes you. Lyraliai inclined her head gracefully. Admiral Morrison. I appreciate you agreeing to meet with us under these unusual circumstances. Admiral Morrison studied them both carefully. Unusual is an understatement. According to the preliminary reports, Sergeant Chen saved your life by giving you a significant amount of his blood. Is that accurate? Completely accurate, Lyraliai confirmed. Without his sacrifice, I would have died, and the research data would have fallen into Kythera hands. The Admiral turned to Marcus. Explain your reasoning, Sergeant. Why risk your life for an enemy combatant? Marcus had been preparing for this question during the journey to the station. Ma'am, Princess Lyraliai is not an enemy combatant. House Moonwhisper has remained neutral in this conflict. She was tortured by the Kythera for refusing to provide information that could have harmed innocent children. Under those circumstances, I determined that helping her served human interests. Admiral Morrison raised an eyebrow. And the fact that this assistance required you to nearly die from blood loss? Sometimes doing the right thing involves personal risk, ma'am. The Admiral exchanged glances with her aides, then leaned forward. Show me this research data you retrieved. Lyraliai placed the crystalline storage device on the table. The data contains a complete cure for the blood plague that has been killing vampire children, as well as treatments for several conditions that affect both our species. The human medical officer, a Dr. Peterson according to his nameplate, picked up the device and connected it to a portable analysis unit. His eyes widened as he reviewed the information. Admiral, Dr. Peterson said quietly, this is incredible. The medical applications go far beyond vampire physiology. Some of these treatments could revolutionize human medicine. Admiral Morrison studied the readouts over the doctor's shoulder. Explain. The blood plague research led to breakthroughs in genetic therapy that could treat human conditions like Kroger's disease and neural degeneration syndrome. We've been working on similar problems for decades without success. Marcus felt a surge of hope. If the medical benefits were clear, perhaps the Admiral would be willing to consider cooperation. What exactly are you proposing? Admiral Morrison asked. Lyraliai leaned forward. A joint research initiative. Shared facilities, shared resources, shared benefits. The vampire houses loyal to House Moonwhisper would provide funding and research personnel. Humanity would contribute technological expertise and manufacturing capabilities. And the war? Admiral Morrison asked bluntly. Would continue, Marcus admitted. We can't stop the conflict between humanity and the Kythera Empire. But we can prove that not all vampires are our enemies. House Moonwhisper and their allies represent nearly 30% of vampire nobility. If we can establish a working relationship with them, it could change the strategic balance of the war. Admiral Morrison was quiet for several minutes, studying the research data and considering the implications. Finally, she looked up. I'll need to consult with Earth Command before making any commitments. but I'm willing to arrange preliminary discussions. Dr. Peterson, I want a full analysis of this medical data within 6 hours. Yes, ma'am. The Admiral stood. Princess Lyralii, you'll need to convince your own people to participate. Many vampire houses consider cooperation with humans to be treason. I understand, Lyralii replied. But, I believe I can convince them. The lives of our children are at stake. After the meeting with Admiral Morrison, Marcus and Lyralii made their way to the vampire section of the station. The architecture was dramatically different, soaring ceilings, elaborate decorative elements, and lighting designed to complement vampire vision. Despite the elegant appearance, Marcus noticed the same heavy security presence. Their meeting was with Count Aldrich Bloodmere, an ancient vampire who served as the primary diplomatic representative for the vampire nobility. Unlike Lyralii's youthful appearance, Count Aldrich looked every one of his 800 years. His hair was silver white, his pale skin marked with the faint scars that even vampire healing couldn't completely erase, and his red eyes held the weight of centuries. Princess Lyralii, Count Aldrich said in a voice like aged whiskey. Your father is quite concerned about your welfare. When you disappeared from the research facility, many feared the worst. I survived thanks to the intervention of Marcus Chen, Lyralii replied, indicating her companion. Count Aldrich's red eyes fixed on Marcus with predatory intensity. A human. How unexpected. Marcus fought the urge to step back under the vampire's gaze. Count Aldrich radiated an aura of power that was almost physical in its intensity. Your lordship, Marcus said formally. I'm honored to meet you. Indeed. Count Aldrich continued staring at Marcus for an uncomfortable moment. I can smell my kind's blood in your veins, human. Princess Lyralii has marked you as surely as if she had claimed you as property. It's not like that, Lyralii said quickly. Marcus gave his blood freely to save my life. I owe him a debt that can never be repaid. Count Aldrich's expression shifted slightly, showing surprise. Freely given? Without coercion or expectation of reward? Completely freely, Marcus confirmed. Princess Lyralii was dying. I had the means to save her, so I did. The ancient vampire was quiet for a long moment, studying Marcus with new interest. Remarkable. In 8 centuries, I have never encountered such altruism from a human. Count Aldrich gestured toward seats arranged around a low table. Unlike the human conference room, this space was designed for comfort rather than formal meetings. Rich fabrics and soft lighting created an atmosphere more suitable for intimate conversation. Tell me about this research, Count Aldrich said as they settled into their seats. Lyralii explained the medical breakthroughs contained in the data, emphasizing the potential to save thousands of vampire children. Count Aldrich listened without interruption, his ancient features revealing nothing of his thoughts. The blood plague, he said finally. Yes, it has been a plague upon our houses for years. Many noble families have lost children to this curse. A cure would be valuable beyond measure. The research could benefit humans as well, Marcus added. Our medical officer identified treatments for several human conditions. Count Aldrich's red eyes focused on Marcus. And, you propose what, exactly? That our species should cooperate in this endeavor? Why not? Marcus asked. We both stand to benefit. The vampire houses get a cure for the blood plague. Humans get treatments for genetic disorders. Children of both species live instead of dying. You speak of cooperation as if it were simple, Count Aldrich observed. Our species have been enemies for centuries. The current war is merely the latest chapter in a very long history of conflict. Lyralii leaned forward. But, it doesn't have to continue, Count Aldrich. Marcus and I have proven that cooperation is possible. His blood flows in my veins now. We are connected in a way that transcends old hatred. Count Aldrich studied them both carefully. You speak of connection. Tell me, Princess, do you feel any unusual effects from consuming this human's blood? Marcus saw Lyralii hesitate slightly before answering. There is a bond between us. I can sense his emotional state, and he can sense mine. It's stronger than typical blood sharing. This was news to Marcus. He hadn't realized that Lyralii could sense his emotions, though he had noticed that he seemed unusually attuned to her moods. Fascinating, Count Aldrich murmured. Human blood rarely creates such strong connections. Your blood must be particularly compatible, young human. What does that mean? Marcus asked. Count Aldrich smiled, showing the tips of his fangs. It means, Marcus Chen, that you and Princess Lyralii are now bound together in ways that neither of you fully understand. Such bonds are rare, even among vampires. They typically occur only when the blood is given with genuine emotion, love, friendship, or profound respect. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. He had given his blood to save Lyralii's life, but he hadn't considered the deeper implications of that choice. The bond will grow stronger over time, Count Aldrich continued. You will find yourselves increasingly connected, able to share thoughts and emotions across great distances. Some vampires consider such bonds to be sacred. Lyralii was staring at Marcus with something approaching wonder. I felt it during the medical treatment, she said softly. Your determination to save innocent children, your willingness to sacrifice everything for strangers. It was overwhelming. Marcus found himself looking into her violet eyes and feeling that same overwhelming sense of connection. There was something profound happening between them, something that went far beyond simple gratitude. Count Aldrich cleared his throat. Touching as this display is, we have practical matters to discuss. Even if I were inclined to support this cooperation initiative, convincing the other vampire houses would be extremely difficult. Many consider humans to be little better than animals. Then, we prove them wrong, Marcus said firmly. One collaboration at a time, one success at a time. Eventually, even the most prejudiced vampire will have to acknowledge that humans are capable of honor and wisdom. And how do you propose to convince the human leadership? Count Aldrich asked. They harbor their own prejudices about vampires. The same way, Lyralii replied. By proving that vampires are capable of mercy and cooperation. By showing that we can work together for the benefit of both species. Count Aldrich was quiet for several minutes, clearly weighing the proposal carefully. Finally, he spoke. I will support a limited trial cooperation, focused specifically on medical research. 3 vampire houses allied with House Moonwhisper will provide funding and personnel. If the collaboration produces meaningful results, we can consider expanding it. Marcus felt relief wash over him. It wasn't everything they had hoped for, but it was a beginning. There is one condition, Count Aldrich continued. Princess Lyralii must lead the vampire side of the initiative. Her connection to you, Marcus Chen, makes her uniquely qualified to serve as a liaison between our species. Lyralii nodded. I accept that responsibility. And you, Marcus Chen, Count Aldrich said. Will you serve as the human liaison? Your commanding officer will need to approve your transfer to diplomatic service, but I believe the medical benefits will convince them. Marcus thought about what he was being asked to do. It would mean leaving his military unit, possibly for years. It would mean working closely with vampires, including Lyralii, in ways that would challenge everything he had been taught about their species. But it would also mean helping to save the lives of children from both species. Yes, he said finally. I'll do it. Count Aldrich smiled. Excellent. I will contact the relevant vampire houses immediately. Princess Lyralii, you should prepare for significant resistance from some quarters. Not all vampires will appreciate your choice to bond with a human. After they left Count Aldrich's chambers, Marcus and Lyralii found themselves walking through one of the station's neutral zones. The corridor was lined with viewports showing the star field beyond, and they paused to look out at the cosmos. Are you sure about this? Lyralii asked quietly. What Count Aldrich said about our bond, it will only grow stronger. There may come a point where we can't function apart from each other. Marcus considered the implications. The idea should have been frightening, losing his independence, becoming emotionally dependent on someone from another species. But, when he looked at Lyralii, he felt only a sense of rightness about their connection. I gave you my blood to save your life, he said. If forming a bond with you is the consequence, I can live with that. Lyralii smiled, and Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest, whether his own emotion or hers, he couldn't tell. There's something else, she said. Something Count Aldrich didn't mention. Vampires who form blood bonds often develop enhanced abilities. Improved healing, increased strength, heightened senses. The effects are strongest in the vampire, but humans can experience them too. That explained why Marcus had been feeling stronger since the medical treatment. What kind of abilities? It varies, Lyralii replied. But, typically, improved physical capabilities and some degree of telepathic connection. You might eventually be able to sense my thoughts and emotions even across great distances. Marcus found the idea intriguing rather than alarming. And, you? What effects are you experiencing? Lyralii paused, clearly considering how much to reveal. Enhanced strength and speed, even by vampire standards. But, more importantly, I can sense your moral certainty. Your absolute conviction that cooperation between our species is possible. It's inspiring. They continued walking through the station, past diplomatic offices and neutral meeting rooms. Marcus noticed that other beings, humans, vampires, and members of other species, watched them with curiosity. Word was apparently spreading about their unusual partnership. What happens next? Marcus asked. We wait for approval from both governments, Lyralii replied. If they agree to the trial cooperation, we'll establish a joint research facility. Probably somewhere in neutral space, away from the war zones. And, if they refuse? Lyralii's violet eyes hardened with determination. Then, we do it anyway. Those children need this cure, Marcus. If politics prevents official cooperation, we'll find another way. Marcus nodded. He had expected that answer, and he agreed with it completely. The lives of innocent children were more important than diplomatic protocols. As they reached the docking bay where Lyralii's ship was berthed, Marcus realized that his life had changed fundamentally. A few days ago, he had been a simple soldier following orders. Now he was bound to a vampire princess and committed to an impossible dream of cooperation between warring species. But, looking at Lyralii, feeling the strength of their connection and the shared sense of purpose that flowed between them, Marcus couldn't bring himself to regret anything. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The blood he had given to save her life had created more than just a medical treatment. It had created a partnership that might eventually change the course of the war itself. Whether the change would come through official diplomatic channels or through their own independent efforts remained to be seen. But Marcus was certain of one thing: Princess Lyralii of House Moonwhisper would never let him go, and he had no desire to be released. Their bond was stronger than politics, stronger than prejudice, and stronger than the ancient hatred between their species. The cure for the blood plague was just the beginning. The real goal was proving that humans and vampires could work together, that cooperation was possible even in the darkest of times. It was an ambitious dream, but Marcus was beginning to believe that together, they might actually achieve it. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of Research Station Unity, watching ships from 3 different species arrive for the quarterly medical conference. The station hung in the void between star systems, its modular design allowing for easy expansion as their research teams grew. What had started as an experimental collaboration between humans and vampires had attracted interest from other species throughout the galaxy. The past months had been a whirlwind of activity. Both human and vampire governments had approved the trial cooperation, though with significant restrictions and oversight. Marcus had been transferred to diplomatic service, while Lyralii had been granted authority to speak for the neutral vampire houses. Together, they had established the most ambitious interspecies medical research initiative in galactic history. Marcus's appearance had changed subtly over the months. The bond with Lyralii had enhanced his physical capabilities beyond normal human limits. He was stronger, faster, and his senses were significantly sharper than before. His hair had developed silver streaks that seemed to mirror Lyralii's natural coloring, and his eyes had taken on a slight violet tint. The changes were subtle enough that most humans wouldn't notice, but vampires recognized them immediately. The delegates from the Kythera Medical Council have arrived, Dr. Elena Vasquez announced as she joined Marcus on the observation deck. Dr. Vasquez served as the senior human researcher on the station, and her expertise in genetic therapy had been crucial to their success. Marcus nodded, though he felt a familiar tension at the mention of the Kythera. The empire that had started the current war was now seeking access to the medical research they had tried to steal from the original facility. Politics made for strange Bedfords. Any word from Lyralii? Dr. Vasquez asked. Marcus closed his eyes and reached out through the bond he shared with the vampire princess. Over the months, their connection had deepened to the point where they could communicate telepathically across the entire station. He could sense her presence in the medical laboratory 3 decks below, reviewing final preparations for the conference presentation. "She's in Lab 7, Marcus said. "The prototype blood plague treatment is ready for demonstration." Dr. Vasquez raised an eyebrow. Marcus's ability to sense Lyraliai's location and emotional state had initially disturbed the human research team, but they had gradually accepted it as simply another aspect of their unique partnership. The conference room was packed with representatives from 12 different species. Humans sat across from vampires, with delegates from neutral species occupying the spaces between. The Kythera delegation, led by Admiral Zenth, occupied seats near the back of the room. Despite being enemies in the ongoing war, all parties had agreed to a medical ceasefire for the duration of the conference. Marcus and Lyraliai stood at the front of the room, facing an audience that included some of the galaxy's most brilliant medical researchers and most powerful political leaders. 6 months ago, Marcus had been a simple soldier following orders. Now he was about to present research that could revolutionize medicine for multiple species. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," Lyraliai began, her voice carrying easily through the large chamber. "6 months ago, we gathered here with a simple goal: to cure a disease that was killing vampire children. Today, we present not just that cure, but breakthroughs that could benefit every species in this room." Dr. Vasquez activated the presentation display, showing medical data that represented months of collaborative research. The blood plague affecting vampire children was caused by a genetic defect that prevented proper blood protein synthesis. Our research team, working with vampire biologists and human geneticists, developed a gene therapy treatment that corrects the defect at the cellular level. A murmur ran through the audience as the implications became clear. Gene therapy had been attempted by every major species, but none had achieved the precision demonstrated in the research data. The breakthrough came from combining human technological precision with vampire understanding of blood biochemistry, Marcus explained. Neither species could have achieved this result working alone. Admiral Zenth, the Kythera delegate, raised one of his 4 arms. "What is the success rate of this treatment?" 97% in controlled trials, Lyraliai replied. "We've treated 43 vampire children with the blood plague. 41 made complete recoveries. The 2 who didn't improve had additional complications that we're still researching." The room erupted in excited conversation. A 97% success rate was unprecedented for such a complex genetic condition. Dr. Vasquez continued the presentation. The research also led to unexpected breakthroughs in treating similar conditions in other species. Kythera respiratory syndrome, Valdoran neural degeneration, and human Kroger's disease all respond to modified versions of the same gene therapy. Marcus watched the faces in the audience as the implications sank in. Medical conditions that had plagued various species for centuries could potentially be treated using the collaborative research methods they had developed. "The treatment protocols are being made freely available to all species," Marcus announced. "We're not seeking patents or exclusive licenses. This research belongs to the galaxy." Admiral Zenth stood. "The Kythera Empire appreciates this gesture, particularly considering our current political differences with humanity." The Kythera had been among the most resistant to the idea of interspecies medical cooperation, viewing it as a sign of weakness. But respiratory syndrome affected thousands of Kythera citizens, and their own medical research had made little progress toward a cure. "Politics should never prevent us from helping the sick," Lyraliai said firmly. "Children are dying while our governments fight over territory and resources. We cannot allow that to continue." After the formal presentation, delegates broke into smaller groups to discuss specific aspects of the research. Marcus found himself surrounded by human military officers who had come to evaluate the strategic implications of the medical cooperation. Sergeant Chen, General Patricia Hayes said, using his old military rank despite his diplomatic status. "Your transformation has been remarkable. Are these physical changes a permanent result of your bond with Princess Lyraliai?" Marcus had been expecting this question. The changes to his appearance and abilities hadn't gone unnoticed by human command, and there were concerns about what it meant for a human to be so closely connected to a vampire. "The changes appear to be stable," Marcus replied. "My enhanced strength and sensory capabilities have proven useful in diplomatic situations. I can detect deception more easily, and I'm much harder to intimidate." "And the telepathic connection with the vampire princess?" another officer asked. Marcus chose his words carefully. Our bond allows for effective coordination and communication. It's been crucial to the success of the research initiative. What he didn't mention was how profound the connection had become. He could feel Lyraliai's emotions as clearly as his own, and she could sense his thoughts even when they were in different parts of the station. Sometimes he wasn't sure where his consciousness ended and hers began. General Hayes leaned closer. There are concerns in some quarters about divided loyalties. Your connection to Princess Lyraliai is stronger than your connection to humanity. Marcus felt a flash of anger, both his own and Lyraliai's, through their bond. She was across the room speaking with vampire delegates, but she had heard the general's comment through their mental link. My loyalty is to the mission, Marcus said firmly. Saving lives and proving that cooperation between species is possible. That mission serves humanity's interests as much as anyone else's. And if those interests conflict with vampire interests? Marcus looked General Hayes directly in the eyes. Then, Lyraliai and I will find a solution that serves both species. That's what cooperation means. General Hayes studied his face for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Just remember that Earth Command is watching this experiment very closely. Success or failure, there will be consequences. Across the room, Lyraliai was having a similar conversation with vampire nobility. Count Aldrich had arrived for the conference, bringing with him several other ancient vampires who viewed the human-vampire cooperation with suspicion. Princess Lyraliai, Countess Moira Shadowfang said in the formal vampire tongue, your connection to the human has attracted considerable attention among the noble houses. Some question whether your judgment remains sound. Lyraliai switched to the same formal language. My judgment has never been clearer, Countess. The research we've accomplished in 6 months exceeds anything our species achieved in centuries of isolation. But, at what cost? Count Victor Bloodthorn interjected. You are bound to a human in ways that compromise your nature. Some whisper that you have become more human than vampire. Through their bond, Marcus felt Lyraliai's irritation spike. The vampire nobility's concern about her transformation mirrored the worries of human command about his own changes. I am exactly what I choose to be, Lyraliai replied coldly. My bond with Marcusgen has made me stronger, not weaker. Our connection allows us to bridge the gap between species in ways that pure-blooded vampires could never achieve. Count Aldrich raised a hand for silence. The results speak for themselves. Princess Lyraliai's collaboration has saved more vampire children in 6 months than our traditional medicine saved in 10 years. Whatever concerns we may have about her transformation, we cannot argue with success. Countess Shadowfang's red eyes narrowed. Success, yes. But, at what long-term cost? The princess's blood is now permanently mixed with human essence. Her children, if she ever has any, will carry that contamination. Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness through the bond and realized that Lyraliai was equally angry on his behalf. The suggestion that their connection was a contamination was insulting to both of them. Human essence, Lyraliai said with dangerous quiet, has given me abilities that surpass those of pure vampires. I am faster, stronger, and more resilient than I was before. If that is contamination, then, perhaps contamination is evolution. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency announcement echoing through the station's communication system. All personnel report to stations immediately. We have incoming warships from multiple factions. Marcus and Lyraliai moved toward each other instinctively, their bond drawing them together in moments of crisis. Through the large viewports, they could see military ships dropping out of hyperspace around the research station. Dr. Vasquez appeared at Marcus's side, her face pale. We have 12 Kythera warships, 8 human destroyers, and 6 vampire cruisers all moving into attack positions. Someone leaked the location of our medical conference. The fragile peace that had allowed the medical cooperation was apparently about to collapse. Each faction apparently believed that the others were planning to seize the research data by force. All civilian ships are being ordered to evacuate, Dr. Vasquez continued. But, the warships are blocking all exit routes. We're trapped in the middle of a 3-way standoff. Marcus reached out through his bond with Lyraliai, sharing tactical assessments and possible solutions. Their enhanced connection allowed them to communicate far more efficiently than verbal conversation. The Kythera Admiral believes that humans and vampires are planning to use the medical research as a weapon, Lyraliai said, interpreting information that Marcus was receiving through his enhanced senses. And the human fleet thinks the vampires are planning to steal the research for exclusive use, Marcus added. Both sides are wrong, but they won't believe that. Count Aldrich approached them, his ancient features showing concern. The vampire cruisers have orders to prevent the research from falling into enemy hands. They will destroy the station rather than allow that to happen. The situation was spiraling toward disaster. Three fleets faced each other around the research station, each believing that the others planned treachery. The medical research that was supposed to unite the galaxy was about to trigger a battle that could destroy everything they had accomplished. We need to get to the communications center, Marcus said. If we can reach all three fleets simultaneously, maybe we can prevent this. Lyralii nodded, and they moved through the station corridors within human speed. Their bond allowed them to coordinate their movements perfectly, avoiding crowds of panicking researchers and diplomats. The enhanced physical abilities that both had developed made them far more capable than normal humans or vampires. They reached the communications center to find it in chaos. Station personnel were frantically trying to establish contact with the warring fleets while also coordinating evacuation procedures for non-essential personnel. Give me a direct channel to all fleet commanders, Marcus ordered, using the authority of his diplomatic status. Sir, they're not responding to our communications, the technician replied. All three fleets have gone to combat readiness. Through the viewports, Marcus could see weapon systems powering up on ships from all three factions. The situation was moments away from erupting into open warfare. Lyralii placed her hand on his shoulder, and Marcus felt their bond deepen. For a moment, they existed as a single consciousness with two bodies, sharing thoughts and perceptions in ways that neither species could achieve alone. The emergency broadcast system, Lyralii said. We can override all communications if we work together. Marcus understood immediately. Their combined knowledge of human technology and vampire techniques would allow them to break through the communications blackout that the military commanders had imposed. Working with perfect coordination, they accessed the station's emergency systems. Marcus provided the technical expertise while Lyralii used vampire mental abilities to interface directly with the computer systems. Within minutes, they had established a communication link that none of the three fleets could block or ignore. Attention all fleet commanders, Marcus said, his voice carrying to every ship in the area. This is Marcus Chen, human liaison for the Medical Cooperation Initiative. And Princess Lyralii of House Moonwhisper, vampire representative, Lyralii added. We are transmitting this message on all emergency frequencies. Through the bond, they could sense the surprise and confusion on the various ships as the fleet commanders received their unexpected transmission. You are preparing to fight over medical research that was never intended for military use, Marcus continued. Children of all three species are dying while you point weapons at each other. The blood plague cure belongs to the galaxy, Lyralii said firmly. As do all the other treatments we've developed. No single species can claim ownership of medicine that saves lives. Admiral Zentha's voice crackled over the communication system. How do we know this isn't a trap? The humans and vampires could be working together to eliminate Kythera forces. Because, Marcus replied, we're offering to share everything freely with everyone. There's no military advantage to be gained from medicine that's available to all. General Hayes's voice joined the conversation. The vampire fleet could be planning to seize the research for exclusive use by vampire houses. Then, why, Lyralii asked, would we have spent 6 months developing treatments for non-vampire species? The Kythera respiratory syndrome cure specifically benefits your enemies, General. Count Victor's voice added to the confusion. Human treachery is well documented. They could be planning to use the medical research as leverage in future negotiations. Marcus felt frustration building through his bond with Lyralii. The three fleet commanders were so focused on their mutual suspicion that they couldn't see the obvious truth. All three of you are being idiots, Lyralii said bluntly, dropping all diplomatic niceties. Marcus and I are standing on a research station filled with doctors, scientists, and medical equipment. If any of us wanted to weaponize this research, we'd do it quietly, not in front of representatives from 12 different species. Marcus added his own blunt assessment. You're about to start a battle that will kill thousands of people over research that's being given away for free. How does that serve anyone's interests? The communication channel fell silent as the three fleet commanders considered their words. Finally, Admiral Zenth spoke. What proof can you offer that this cooperation is genuine? That neither humans nor vampires planned deception? Marcus looked at Lyralii, and, through their bond, they shared an understanding. There was only one way to convince the suspicious fleet commanders that their cooperation was real and permanent. This proof, Marcus said, and reached out to take Lyralii's hand. The moment their skin touched, their bond flared with visible energy. Silver light surrounded both of them, marking the strength of their connection for anyone with the technology to detect it. The energy signature was unlike anything produced by either species alone. Marcus Chen and I are permanently bonded, Lyralii explained. His blood flows in my veins, and my essence flows in his. We cannot betray each other without destroying ourselves. Our cooperation isn't political, Marcus added. It's biological. We literally cannot function independently anymore. If humans and vampires go to war, we die together. The silver light faded, but the demonstration had achieved its purpose. Every sensor on every ship in the area had recorded the energy signature of their bond. It was proof that couldn't be faked or manufactured. Admiral Zenth was the first to respond. Remarkable. Kythera scientists have never observed such a phenomenon. You are truly joined at the genetic level. Which means, General Hayes said slowly, that any betrayal of the cooperation would be suicide for both of you. Count Victor's ancient voice carried a note of wonder. In 800 years, I have never seen such a perfect joining of different species. It is unprecedented. Marcus felt relief flooding through his bond with Lyralii as the three fleet commanders began to stand down their weapons systems. The medical research will remain available to all species, Lyralii announced. Marcus and I will continue to oversee the cooperation, ensuring that no single faction gains unfair advantage. And if political pressures force our governments to end the cooperation officially, Marcus added, we will continue the research independently. The lives of sick children are more important than politics. The crisis had been averted, but Marcus realized that their public demonstration of the bond's strength had changed everything. Their relationship was no longer a private matter between them, it had become a symbol of interspecies cooperation that the entire galaxy would be watching. As the warships began withdrawing to safe distances, Marcus and Lyralii remained in the communications center, still holding hands. The silver light of their bond continued to flicker faintly around them, visible proof of a connection that transcended species boundaries. We can never go back, Lyralii said quietly, speaking through their mental link rather than aloud. I know, Marcus replied. Are you ready for that? Through the bond, he felt her absolute certainty. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. Their demonstration had saved the medical cooperation and prevented a destructive battle. But it had also publicly committed them to each other in ways that would make separation impossible. Whatever came next, they would face it as a bonded pair whose very existence proved that cooperation between species was not just possible, but inevitable. The blood plague was cured, but their real mission was just beginning. They had become living symbols of a future where species boundaries mattered less than shared goals and mutual respect. It was a heavy responsibility, but one they would carry together for the rest of their enhanced lives. 3 years had passed since the confrontation at Research Station Unity, and the galaxy had changed in ways that few could have predicted. The Medical Cooperation Initiative had expanded beyond anyone's expectations, encompassing research stations in 47 different star systems. The treatments developed through interspecies collaboration had saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Marcus stood on the balcony of their private residence on Haven Prime, a planet that had been selected as the permanent headquarters for the Interspecies Medical Alliance. The world was jointly administered by representatives from 15 different species, making it truly neutral territory. Below him, the city of New Harmony stretched to the horizon, its architecture blending elements from every major galactic civilization. His appearance had continued to evolve over the years. The bond with Lyralii had transformed him into something that was neither fully human nor vampire, but something entirely new. His hair was now completely silver, matching Lyralii's natural coloring, and his eyes had become a striking violet that mirrored hers. More significantly, his lifespan had been extended to match vampire longevity. He would live for centuries, aging slowly alongside his bonded partner. Lyralii emerged from their shared study, carrying reports from the latest research developments. Her own transformation had been equally dramatic. She now possessed abilities that surpassed even ancient vampires, and her connection to human empathy had given her insights into non-vampire psychology that made her an extraordinarily effective diplomat. The Council of Species is requesting another demonstration of the bonding process, Lyralii said, settling into a chair beside him. Apparently, 3 more species are interested in exploring similar connections with humans. Marcus felt a mixture of pride and concern through their bond. In the 3 years since their public demonstration, 12 other human-vampire pairs had successfully formed similar bonds. Each pairing had resulted in enhanced abilities for both partners and served as a bridge between their respective species. But the process remained dangerous. For every successful bonding, 2 attempts had resulted in death for one or both participants. The Zephyrin delegation specifically wants to know if humans can bond with their species, Lyralii continued. Their children have been suffering from a genetic condition that affects their crystalline nervous system. They think a human Zephyrin bond might provide insights for treatment. Marcus considered the implications. The Zephyrans were a silicon-based species whose physiology was radically different from both humans and vampires. Attempting a bond with them would be uncharted territory, potentially far more dangerous than human-vampire bonding. What do you think? Marcus asked, though he could already sense Lyralii's thoughts through their connection. I think, Lyralii said carefully, that we need to be very cautious about expanding the bonding process to other species. What works between humans and vampires might not work elsewhere. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Vasquez, who approached carrying a datapad with obvious excitement. Over the years, she had become the chief medical researcher for the Alliance, overseeing research teams from dozens of species. Marcus, Lyralii, Dr. Vasquez said, barely containing her enthusiasm. We've made a breakthrough with the neural degeneration research. The new treatment protocol has a 94% success rate across 7 different species. Marcus felt Lyralii's excitement spike through their bond. Neural degeneration had been one of the most challenging conditions they tackled, affecting beings as different as humans, Kythera, and the crystalline Valdorans. How? Marcus asked. The key was understanding that neural degeneration affects quantum consciousness fields, not just biological neural networks, Dr. Vasquez explained. By combining human quantum mechanics research with vampire understanding of consciousness transfer and Kythera energy field manipulation, we developed a treatment that addresses the fundamental cause. Lyralii leaned forward. You're saying consciousness itself can be treated like a medical condition? Exactly, Dr. Vasquez replied. And the treatment works for any species with quantum consciousness, which includes almost every sapient species we've encountered. Marcus felt a chill of realization. If consciousness could be medically manipulated, the implications went far beyond treating disease. The technology could potentially be used to alter memory, personality, or even basic identity. Who else knows about this research? Marcus asked. Just the core research team, about 15 scientists from 6 different species. We've been keeping it classified until we understood the full implications. Through their bond, Marcus and Lyralii shared concern about the potential for misuse. Technology that could manipulate consciousness would be incredibly valuable to military and intelligence organizations from every major power in the galaxy. We need to think very carefully about how to proceed, Lyralii said. This research could revolutionize medicine, but it could also be weaponized in ways that make traditional warfare look primitive. Dr. Vasquez nodded. That's why I brought it to you two first. As the founders of the Alliance, you have final authority over research classifications and distribution. Marcus stood and walked to the edge of the balcony, looking out over the city where beings from dozens of species lived and worked together in unprecedented harmony. The medical cooperation had achieved more than anyone had dreamed possible, but it had also created new responsibilities and dangers. We publish the neural degeneration treatment immediately, he decided. Children are dying while we debate potential misuse. But we classify the consciousness manipulation research and restrict access to a select group of trusted researchers. Lyralii joined him at the balcony railing. Agreed. And we establish an ethics board with representatives from every major species to oversee future consciousness research. Dr. Vasquez made notes on her datapad. I'll prepare the treatment protocols for immediate distribution and set up security protocols for the classified research. After she left, Marcus and Lyralii remained on the balcony, watching the sun set over New Harmony. The city's bioluminescent districts were beginning to glow with the soft light preferred by nocturnal species, while the human residential areas brightened with artificial illumination. Do you ever regret it? Lyralii asked quietly. Giving up your human life for this? Marcus considered the question seriously. In 3 years, he had transformed from a simple soldier into something unprecedented in galactic history. His bond with Lyralii had made him faster, stronger, and more intelligent than any normal human, but it had also tied his fate to hers permanently. If she died, he would die. If she chose to leave, he would be unable to follow his own independent path. Never, he said finally. My human life was about following orders and fighting wars. This life is about building something better. Through their bond, he felt Lyralii's relief and love. Her own transformation had been equally dramatic. She had given up the immortal certainty of vampire existence for a life of uncertainty and constant change. The Galactic Council is planning to offer us permanent seats, Lyralii said. Official recognition as representatives of a new hybrid species. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The Galactic Council rarely recognized new species, particularly ones that were artificially created through bonding processes. What would that mean, he asked. Formal diplomatic status for all bonded pairs, Lyralii explained. The right to establish colonies, negotiate treaties, and participate in galactic governance as equals with other species. The idea was intriguing but also concerning. Creating a new species, even an artificial one, would have implications that neither of them fully understood. Their discussion was interrupted by an emergency communication from the Alliance headquarters. Admiral Morrison, now retired from military service and serving as the human representative to the Alliance, appeared on their personal communication screen. Marcus, Lyralii, Admiral Morrison said urgently. We have a situation developing in the Outer Rim. The Kythera Empire is claiming that our medical research violates the Treaty of Galactic Neutrality. Marcus felt a familiar tension through his bond with Lyralii. Political complications were always threatening to undermine their medical work. What specifically are they claiming? Lyralii asked. They're arguing that consciousness manipulation technology constitutes a weapon of mass destruction, Admiral Morrison replied. Emperor Volth has demanded that all consciousness research be turned over to the Galactic Military Authority for evaluation. Marcus cursed under his breath. Someone had leaked information about their classified consciousness research, probably deliberately to create political pressure. The Emperor is also claiming that bonded pairs represent a new form of biological warfare, Admiral Morrison continued. He's calling for a ban on all human-vampire bonding and the quarantine of existing bonded pairs. Lyralii's anger flared through their bond. Emperor Volth had been a consistent opponent of interspecies cooperation, viewing it as a threat to Kythera military dominance. What's the timeline? Marcus asked. The Galactic Council is meeting in emergency session next week, Admiral Morrison replied. They'll vote on whether to impose restrictions on Alliance research and bonded pairs. We need you both at the Council chambers to present our case. After ending the communication, Marcus and Lyralii spent several hours reviewing political intelligence and preparing their defense strategy. The medical cooperation that had saved millions of lives was under threat from beings who saw cooperation itself as dangerous. Emperor Volth is afraid, Lyralii observed. The success of the Alliance undermines his argument that different species are naturally incompatible. Marcus nodded. The Kythera Empire's power was built on the premise that conflict between species was inevitable. If humans, vampires, and other species could work together successfully, it called into question the Empire's entire worldview. We need to demonstrate the benefits of cooperation more clearly, Marcus said. Show the Council what we've accomplished, not just in medical research but in building peaceful relationships. The next morning, they departed for the Galactic Council chambers on the neutral world of Concordia. Their ship, jointly designed by human and vampire engineers, incorporated technologies from both species to achieve capabilities that neither could have developed alone. During the journey, they were joined by representatives from the 12 other bonded pairs and senior researchers from the Alliance. Dr. Vasquez brought comprehensive data on the medical breakthroughs achieved through interspecies cooperation, while Count Aldrich provided political analysis of vampire noble houses' positions. The younger vampire houses support the Alliance, Count Aldrich reported. But some of the ancient houses are concerned about the long-term implications of bonding with humans. They fear dilution of vampire purity. Marcus felt frustration spike through his bond with Lyralii. After 3 years of unprecedented success, they were still fighting the same old prejudices about species purity and superiority. What about human opposition? Marcus asked. Growing, Dr. Vasquez admitted. Some military leaders are concerned that bonded humans are no longer fully loyal to humanity. There are calls for genetic screening to prevent bonding compatibility. The situation was more serious than Marcus had realized. Both humans and vampires were developing factions that opposed the bonding process, while external species like the Kythera were actively working to destroy the alliance. When they arrived at Concordia, the atmosphere was tense. Delegates from 43 different species had gathered to debate the future of interspecies cooperation. Protesters from various factions demonstrated outside the council chambers, some supporting the alliance while others called for its dissolution. The council session opened with Emperor Volf presenting his case against the alliance. The Kythera leader was an imposing figure, standing nearly 3 meters tall with the characteristic 4 arms and chitinous exoskeleton of his species. Honored delegates, Emperor Volf began, his translated voice carrying throughout the vast chamber. We face a threat to the natural order of the galaxy. These so-called medical cooperations are creating artificial species through genetic manipulation. Bonded pairs possess abilities that surpass those of their parent species, making them potential weapons. Marcus listened to the Emperor's arguments through their translation systems, noting the careful way he mixed legitimate concerns with deliberate mischaracterizations. Furthermore, Emperor Volf continued, the consciousness manipulation research conducted by this alliance could be used to alter the fundamental nature of sapient beings. Such technology in the wrong hands could enslave entire civilizations. When Emperor Volf finished his presentation, it was Marcus and Lyraliai's turn to respond. They approached the central podium together, their bond creating a faint silver aura that was visible to any being with the appropriate sensory apparatus. Honored delegates, Lyraliai began, Emperor Volf speaks of threats and weapons, but the reality is children whose lives have been saved by Alliance research. In 3 years, we have developed treatments for 47 different medical conditions affecting species throughout the galaxy. Marcus activated a display showing statistical data on lives saved, diseases cured, and suffering prevented through their research. The numbers were impressive, over 12 million beings had received treatment based on Alliance research. The consciousness research that Emperor Volf fears has been used exclusively to treat neural degeneration, Marcus explained. Children who were facing death or permanent disability are now living normal, healthy lives. As for bonded pairs being weapons, Lyraliai continued, we challenge Emperor Volf to explain how beings dedicated to healing and cooperation could threaten anyone except those who profit from conflict. The silver aura around them intensified slightly as their bond strengthened in response to the political pressure. Several delegates leaned forward, clearly fascinated by the visible manifestation of their connection. We are not artificial, Marcus said firmly. We are evolved. Evolution through cooperation rather than conflict, through synthesis rather than domination. Emperor Volf rose from his delegation's seating area. You prove my point precisely. You claim to be evolved beyond your parent species. Such claims have historically led to attempts at domination. Marcus felt anger surge through his bond with Lyraliai, but also her determination to respond with reason rather than emotion. Evolution through cooperation cannot lead to domination, Lyraliai replied calmly. Our enhanced abilities require the cooperation of our bonded partner. We literally cannot function alone, cannot pursue individual ambition at the expense of our partner's well-being. The session continued for hours, with delegates from various species asking questions and presenting their own positions. Marcus was encouraged to see that most species supported continued cooperation, though many wanted additional safeguards and oversight. During a recess, Marcus and Lyraliai found themselves approached by Ambassador Tila of the Valdoran Collective, a species known for their analytical approach to complex problems. Your demonstration of the bonding process is impressive, Ambassador Tila said, her crystalline features reflecting the chamber's light. But, Emperor Volf raises valid concerns about the potential for misuse. How can you guarantee that consciousness manipulation technology will never be weaponized? Marcus and Lyraliai exchanged thoughts through their bond before responding. We can't guarantee that, Marcus admitted. Any powerful technology can be misused. But, the solution is not to ban the research, it's to ensure that ethical beings control its development and application. The Alliance has already established ethics boards and oversight committees, Lyraliai added. We welcome additional safeguards, but abandoning life-saving research because of potential misuse would itself be unethical. Ambassador Tila nodded slowly. A reasonable position. The Valdoran Collective will support continued alliance research with enhanced oversight protocols. The final vote was closer than Marcus had hoped but ultimately decisive. 31 species voted to continue supporting the alliance, with additional oversight and ethical guidelines. 8 species, led by the Kythera Empire, voted for significant restrictions. 4 species abstained, wanting more time to evaluate the implications. After the vote, Marcus and Lyralii found themselves exhausted but relieved. The alliance would continue, though under increased scrutiny. Their bonding process remained legal, though several species would require additional documentation and monitoring. "We won," Lyralii said as they prepared to return to Haven Prime. "This round," Marcus corrected. "Emperor Volth isn't."